We have a very similar endgame to the last game, only that black has still an extra pawn on b7. It was the game Sevillana against Pretke, played in Filiran Swiss in Samarkand 2025. Let's see how the game continued. Black played g6. Okay, it's very understandable move. Also, other moves are also draw for the engine, but I think it's very understandable you want to defend the pawn on h5. But maybe psychologically you could use a small trick, because now, let's say, the main point is that white wants to play rook d7 and pressure this pawn. If you play with the passive rook, then it's dangerous, yeah? So maybe in these cases you can use a tricky idea just to give this pawn, not this one. Now you activate the rook, you put it on the second rank, and it's just draw, yeah? Of course, okay, white has some chances probably, at some moment practical chances, but very small. Like 90% draw, I would say. Okay, black play g6 is also draw, it's understandable move, yeah? But he's giving this pawn, not this pawn. I would give the h5 pawn, to be honest. Okay, so let's see how the game continues. Rook d7. Now, of course, rook b8 is a move that can be played, but it's psychologically very difficult to play a position like this. I can really understand it. And by the way, here, you cannot just wait. For example, if you play king g7, after king g2, white's position is winning. Why it's winning? Because let's say I play king f6, I go king f3, let's say king e6, I go rook c7. See? Let's say you wait, and I just come with the king. Let's say you wait, I go with the king. No, not immediately, because, yeah, excuse me, rook d8, rook d7, yeah, it's draw. I can first play, let's say, a waiting move, maybe something like f4, maybe something like... No, maybe it's not easy, maybe it's not good to touch these pawns, yeah? Maybe I should triangulate simply, like king f3, king f6, king e3, yeah, maybe some triangulation like this is the best, yeah? But still, rook a8, yeah? So it was not so... Yeah, this is probably the best, yeah? This is the best way to win. Because now if check, now it's a different story. Because it's not rook d7, now I win with every move, yeah? In d6. It's winning position. So after b6, black should really activate the rook. But not here, because now you should go to the 6th rank, yeah? But rook c8 or rook e8, yeah? And after take, this is the only drawing idea. The rook should stay here. You see, very logical for many players would be to put it here, but on c6 it should stay. Why after king g2 you cannot do it? It's a good question. Let's say here, if you do it now, because now you will probably not be in time somewhere, king f3. And when you wait, king f4, yeah, it's bad now for black. But in this situation, if I go king g2 with the idea king f3, you play rook f6, key move, and you don't allow the king to come here. So it's a very difficult decision. Of course, nobody asked you to go for this with black, yeah? I just wanted to show you what happens with passive defense. Then anyway, you need to play actively, and then rook f6 is the best move, yeah? Actually, it's an instructive move, I believe. So rook c8, rook c6, and now rook f6, only move to make a draw. And it's draw objectively, of course, still you need to work a bit, but now it's objectively a draw. Okay, black decided to sacrifice the pawn immediately. He played rook a3, rook takes b7, rook b3. Okay, it's a fine decision. It's a fine decision. King f1, rook b2. What is important to understand with black is that this endgame is draw, but at some point, you will face a difficult decision, yeah? Most likely. And you need to be ready, as I mentioned already in the previous example, you need to be ready to feel that moment and to understand, and then to give your best and make the best decision. So basically you can play quickly, but when the critical moment comes, then you should give the maximum, yeah? So king g2, rook b3 was played, very normal play for no questions to any player. White tries to go here, and then at some moment b6, yeah? That's a typical strategy for a lot of grandmasters, yeah? So basically, white can push b6 immediately, yeah? It will be the same probably, but first they give one try, then second try king e1, then cut the king, and then after a few moves, yeah, they play b6. Okay. It's a typical strategy, it doesn't have fantastic passes, just some tactical tries, very small tries, yeah? And Also, maybe your opponent doesn't know if you want to play with pawn on b5, so he will play like 6-7 moves with the pawn on b5. At the moment you push the pawn on b6, yeah, so maybe he doesn't know what are your plans, yeah? But okay. King f6, rook b8, and now, yeah, this is a critical moment. Now, how to make draw in these positions? Basically, you wait, and if white plays b7, that's not dangerous because you just wait, and you should know, yeah? You push the pawn to f6, very likely, or just play the king on f6. Let's say, for example, king d1. I'm not sure about f6 now. Maybe f6 is losing because f3 g4 plans at some moment. But you just wait with the king, and it's easy draw because basically when the king arrives here, let's say you just wait, and whenever the king arrives, you start to give checks, and there is no way to hide white's king, yeah? So this is easy draw, of course. Not easy to say what is white's best plan right here, because I think if you play king d1, okay, right now I cannot take because b7 and then check on e8, yeah? But maybe I can play a move like king f5, yeah? Let's say rook c1 and just wait. Let's say you go back, okay. And now maybe I can go king g4. Let's say you go to e2, okay, I give check. And now I have a fantastic counterplay, yeah? So it was just better to wait for black. This is the right strategy. A lot of times I saw my opponents also that they play panic moves in these situations. They don't need to do anything, they just need to wait and there is no improvement, but they make a panic move. And g5 was clearly a panic move. I don't say that it's easy to evaluate what's coming next, yeah, but there is no need to go for g5. You should understand that this position is basically always draw objectively, yeah? So you need to wait, and when white takes some action, then you start your counterplay, yeah? By action, I mean that when white sacrifices f2, or when white pushes b7, or I don't know, when white pushes g4, something should happen, but let white do it, yeah? Don't do it by yourself. Now, your master Predke played g5, it's a losing mistake, take. And now white has only one winning move, but it's quite natural, f3, very logical. Black went back with the king on f6, and now white just came with the king c1, rook b5, and now, okay, rook b7 was played, king c2, king c3, king c4, and basically white's idea is that maybe one moment he can hide the king, yeah, in the future. So rook c1 was played, but now he went king d3, okay. Sometimes people repeat the moves, yeah, so it's not something very important. Usually it's better to have king on b7, not king on b8, because if you, for example, put your king on b8, let's say I just want to show you an example, but here is not even possible, yeah, so because you cannot even maneuver. But I just want to show you that if for some reason you can put the king on b8, anyway, it's not easy to improve because this construction is the worst construction. It's called the sandwich. The rook is on the sandwich, yeah, between the pawn and the king, and not easy to improve the position. So that's why, yeah, it's understandable that white played rook b8 first, and then he started to go with the king, and then rook h8. And the point is that if you take here, I will get a winning pawn endgame this time. So white uses a small tactical shot, yeah, this winning pawn endgame. And black played f6, and it was clear that it's game over now. f5, just, okay, black had f4 last try, but okay, this is easy win. Now you can do whatever you want. You can even push b7 because you have the free f pawn, of course, yeah. Let's say if king c6, you just go, this is winning also. But okay, understandable, white played f5, f6, and it was resign, yeah? So you see, no question really to white's side, yeah? White tried to do his best. White tried to do his best. And once black made a mistake, white converted in a very convincing way, yeah? With a move f3, not f4, of course. This was the key move. But g5, yeah, this was a terrible blunder from black. So let's sum up a bit. Black made a terrible decision here by playing g5. It was a very bad move because from a very standard position where you know it's draw, you go to some unstandard position where you don't know what is this, yeah? It was also bad tactical decision, not only objective decision. And second that I didn't like really is the move g6 here. This is a move that I wouldn't play. I would play f6 instead. And if he goes rook d7, okay, maybe I play b6, and then I play the same position with the pawn on f6, and then maybe it's another story. Maybe then g5 will be stronger, yeah? Because then maybe I can take with the pawn. I don't know. But it's not really about the objective evaluation of f6. It's about the fact that my hope is that my opponent will take the h5 pawn, it's hanging, yeah? And a lot of players will take the h5 pawn. It's a practical chance, yeah? And if I take the h5 pawn, white is happy because he has an extra pawn, but we're happy because it's a draw, yeah? Because we put the rook on b2. So this, I didn't like this. Maybe white will still play rook d7 to be almost the same, yeah? But maybe not, yeah? Maybe also rook a3 immediately, I don't know. Maybe rook a5, yeah. Rook a5 was also a good move. Actually, maybe rook a5 also a good move. And now maybe something like check, and now rook b1, yeah? This was maybe another very good. Maybe this is objectively the best, yeah? Because you force the capture of this one because white cannot lose this one. Yeah, and nobody will refuse this pawn, trust me. And then you go with the rook back, and it's a draw. So this was probably the best practically. Okay, thanks for watching and see you in the next example.